Hello and welcome to Moral Side of the News, our weekly discussion of today's top stories from a moral, ethical, and religious point of view. We've been doing this since 1948 on WHS radio and television, and we're here again today to examine the moral side of the news. Joining us today, a distinguished panel of local religious leaders, Father Bill Hammer, St. Margaret Mary and St. William Catholic Churches, Reverend Sally McClain, Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, Dr. Todd Stepp, Pastor, Ancient Paths Church of the Nazarene, Rabbi Matt Derrenbacher, the Temple, and Rabbi Joe Rooks Rapport, also with the Temple. We begin this week with the NBA gambling scandal.
Tonight, an NBA coach and a star player among more than 30 people indicted in a pair of illegal gambling cases that prosecutors say put pro basketball in bed with the mob.
Your winning streak has ended. Your luck has run out. Violating the law is a losing proposition, and you can bet on that.
Federal prosecutors say the mafia paid Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups and former Cleveland Cavaliers player Damon Jones to lure unsuspecting victims to high-stakes poker games in the Hamptons, Las Vegas, Miami, and Manhattan. The bombsters called the celebrity athletes face cards and the victims fish.
What the victims, the fish, didn't know is that everybody else at the poker game, from the dealer to the players, including the face cards, were in on the scam.
Prosecutors showing off technology they say the mafia used to rig the games, including an altered card shuffling machine and an X-ray poker table that could read cards face down, allegedly cheating victims out of more than $7 million. And there were real victims here.
Correct, absolutely.
Lured to these poker tables by Chauncey Billups?
And others, exactly.
Billups, who coached the Blazers' season opener last night, placed on immediate leave. So was Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, who was charged in a separate indictment involving illegal sports betting.
Terry Rozier, right foot discomfort, doubtful to return.
Prosecutors say during this game in March 2023, Rozier, then with the Charlotte Hornets, tipped off bettors that he would fake an injury and come out of the game to enable them to place fraudulent wagers on him underperforming, the winnings totaling more than $200,000.
The proceeds were later delivered to his home, where the group counted their cash. As the NBA season tips off, his career is already benched, not for injury, but for integrity.
Prosecutors also allege then-coach Damon Jones knew LeBron James would miss a Lakers game against the Milwaukee Bucks with an injury and sold that information to bettors, texting, "Get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight," before the information is out.
Let's not, mince words. This is the insider trading saga for the NBA. That's what this is.
All this raises serious concerns about integrity in sports. How should people of faith think about the moral cost when competition and entertainment become tied to betting and temptation? We'll go to the Catholic first, who likes gambling.
Well, for some people, gambling is entertainment. I don't think it is myself. You flip coins and do things like that, but when there is big money involved, I think it is going to invite people to take advantage of that situation, and we certainly see that. It's not limited by no means. There's been gambling fraud and issues in baseball. There's been a lot of it lately involved in horse racing, and football and things like that. It's just, if you choose to entertain yourself with betting, I think you should know it's rigged against you. And I don't support choice. I occasionally will go to places that Vegas, Reno. I've been those places and enjoyed myself. But I'm putting down $2, $5. I'm not trying to win money to support a family or do things like that. And so I think it is something that everybody needs to step back and look at your habits. And there are certainly programs out there to help, gambling addicts. And there are people out there who are addicted to it. And that is a sin,
You used to have to go to a bookie or to a gambling establishment in order to place a bet. So you would have to travel consciously thinking of one thing to the next. Now you hold it in your hand.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can instantly place a bet. So just think of the increase in temptation if you are, addicted. It's how do you get rid of I mean, if you're an alcoholic, it's like having a drink in your hand all the time. So how do you handle that?
I think that's a really good point. It's not the moral issue of gambling or not gambling, which Judaism has kind of a in moderation to most considered vices. But what makes this, I think, at the core of this story is the spread of sports gambling, sports bet, and the plethora of different ways in which you can make a bet, and these prop bets on individual players. And I feel like the biblical phrase, not to put a stumbling block before the blind, applies here very clearly. I mean, when you're talking about, because you see a lot of this, anytime you see a gambling story in sports, it's like the Black Sox scandal, from 100 years ago. But the analogy doesn't work at all, because in those days you'd need to take, and in that thing you need to get an entire team, on a consistent basis to tank something. Now it's like one play, you can make a bet on one player, the over and under. Are they going to make this many three-point shots? Are they going to make this many points overall? And that one player then becomes very, with so much money at stake, very liable to be, to be influenced, and then hundreds of thousands of dollars are in play. So, I think that, there is a problem with the system, not that there is a system, but the system is literally making it easy, to take advantage of both the players, and all of, the people who are making these bets.
So our church has taken a probably more strict view on gambling, and we talk about that under a section that we talk about greed. And so we've opposed gambling, whether it's illegal or legal. We've seen too much of people who have been adversely impacted by that. We've seen families destroyed, homes lost, and those kinds of things. We look at those who are on the poorer side of the economic spectrum who, obviously not everybody does this, but those who will take what they get and then run and buy a lottery ticket with that. And so we see that kind of thing, and we take a stand with those who have been impacted adversely by that. And so then whenever you look at the idea that illegal gambling slips in, which obviously that's another part of that, when the industry itself is such that it's obvious who's making the money, right? The bait is you're going to win all this money, but the reality is, that's why even legal gambling, you have all the money that's put back into the community. Well, where did that come from? So we've taken that stance against that, and then whenever you add that to things like sports that otherwise did not have gambling involved, it's a big taint, I think, on all of that, and it does leave people open to temptation. And so I think it's a shame that it's gone in this direction.
Yeah. I also want to look at just another element of this story, too. So there are a few individuals who have sort of a reputation and have some fame, and there's responsibility that comes along with that too, right? And so you have these coaches or these players saying like, hey, we can be friends, come hang out at this poker game with me, right? And it's, there's a principle in Judaism when you're engaging in business, you're not supposed to put an extra weight on the scale, right, to tip it in your favor, and that's exactly what this is doing. It's an abuse of power, it's tipping the scales, and it's really, really unfortunate, and it shows the dangers of the increase in online gambling and just gambling in general.
And I don't think it would be, to me, governmental interference to set some caps on some of this stuff.
Yeah. Right.
That...
Or some standards that need to be applied.
Standards, but for sure that you can't bet over, like to bet hundreds of thousands of dollars, an individual to be able to do that. You've got the capacity, I'm assuming, many of them do.
Yeah.
But to say, you can make some money on this, and when I'm sitting around with my buddies, and we have a history that goes back some 40 years of penny ante poker. Now, we are now up to nickel, dime, and quarter. I mean, inflation. Yeah. Well, they're going to get rid of it. It's literally started as a penny game.
Yeah.
But for us, it's a social activity that we do, every year, and it's usually in the December time range when things are slowing down socially. But for us, it's a social event. And when I'm sitting around, getting ready to watch the Derby, and with family and friends, and we're all putting $1 down, but we're all pulling a name out. That's a social activity for us. And you're not going to win that kind of money, but you're not risking that kind of money either. And that's the hard part, is that we do have to think of a responsibility for putting out temptations. It's better, Jesus said, better a millstone be tied around your neck than to tempt.
What is the actual temptation? Is the actual temptation a false sense of hope?
I think in part you're right. So.
For some, if they're trying to risk their family, their income on just a major success.
And combining that with Todd's point, which is, we have a state lottery.
Yes.
And somebody's going to win, might as well be you. That's the sense of
Might
hope.
as well, right.
Sense of hope,
But on the other hand, they're advertising also how much money they're bringing in from the state lottery, which is funding education. Well, where's that money coming from? It's from all the people who didn't win. And if you do that math, you're playing both those pieces. I've always viewed the state lottery as like a voluntary tax. Because it's raising money for good causes from people who I'm hoping probably know they're not going to win. Or certainly, if you're a regular player of the lottery, that they're net not going to win. They may occasionally, hit some numbers, but the real challenge is the distance between those, which is, I think a lot of the victims are the sports athletes, and particularly as people are betting on college games and things like that.
Yes.
There's so much at stake, and there's then so much pressure. Even when someone's not complicit in some sort of gambling scheme, there are athletes who are being shadowed, heckled, stalked because you cost me a fortune. I was just playing tennis. I mean, you bet on stuff, but it's changing the nature of sports, and a lot of this has to do with tracking individual performances. Not that you can't bet on a team and try to fix that, but it's put so much more glaring attention on the individual athlete, and so much more opportunity for that individual athlete to either benefit from that or at least be used by that.
And I think that, to your point, Sally, the players, they're multimillionaires already. So what was in it for them to help this guy make $200,000? I mean, it's pure greed for the players, from some of the players' perspective.
And it spills over. This is not gambling related, but again, the whole development of the NIL, in sports, name, image, likeness, and the opportunities to generate incredible amounts of money. And planning for your future.
Right.
In your mind, you're planning for the future, but the temptation's there. And we need to be attentive to that in all our lives, in all aspects of our lives, the temptations that are out there.
Well, great discussion. We'll continue to follow the story. A lot of folks are saying it's just the tip of the iceberg, what's happening. There's so many sports out there. So we turn now to the government shutdown and the possibility of a pause in SNAP benefits.
These shelves of non-perishables are ready to bring a basket of hope to Southern Indiana families. The food bank Hope Southern Indiana says about 40% of their food comes from the USDA.
And the other percentage, the other 50% comes from our community.
Emergency Services Director Heather Liebert says usage has increased by 30% since April.
When it comes to Hope Southern Indiana, have y'all seen a recent increase in families needing this sort of food?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, since SNAP is coming to an end, especially today, we saw a lot of fear walk through the doors this morning.
The journey to keep families fed expands across the city of New Albany. Hope Southern Indiana says they partner with several churches who host food drives and donate those items to their food pantry. But there are other congregations in Floyd County, just like Vineyard Church, who have a similar mission and program. It all started with this blessing box.
A little food pantry box that's on the corner of our building. Take what they need, leave what you can type of operation.
Co-pastors Brian and Alexandra Hassett have kept the spirit of the box alive and expanded it into a food pantry.
This is literally what I believe churches are called to do. It's like when there's people hungry in our area, it's our job to make sure families are fed.
The Hassids say the news of the no SNAP benefits in November stirred panic among church members and their families.
They're stressed out, and it's so hard to see the way that wears on entire families, because it's not, I think a lot of times we just attribute this to an adult issue, but we forget that children are involved in this.
Both organizations are preparing for an increase in demand, but they need your help to ensure no families struggle.
So panel, we're heading into week 5 of the government shutdown. I think many folks on both sides are just frustrated with everything that's happening. Just get our government back started. That's about the 5th or 6th story that WHS 11 News has done on the SNAP program alone and food pantries building up. So your thoughts on that and where we are in general with the government shutdown?
Well, one of the interesting things in our community is we're beginning to ask, who are the people that are actually hungry? Because I think in churches, sometimes we're pretty isolated from those people in our communities who need it the most, and they're not usually the ones that ask the most. So it's sort of trying to find out who those people are and how it is that we can go about better finding a way to get nutrition to these families.
Just to put some numbers to that, 40% of the people who are receiving SNAP are children.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, 30% are seniors. Right. Another 10% are people who are disabled. I mean, these are the most needy in our community that we have a responsibility. I mean, I agree with what we saw in that clip. I mean, if we as a religious community aren't about caring for the hungry and clothing the naked and housing the unhoused, what are we thinking when we're reading the books of the prophets?
Can we begin to make up for what the government is cutting off?
No, but I think that we need to be trying. And if ever there was a time to contribute to Dare to Care and to Highland Community Ministries and the shelters downtown, JFCS Food Pantry. There's all these different organizations that have been doing this for a long time, and they're all now going to be under pressure. And now's a real time to really pick our heads up and say these people need our help.
Yeah, we have. Like probably other religious organizations, we have a broad national and global kinds of compassionate ministries, but we have to look at, I'm glad for the clip because it was New Albany, so that's my county, and I'm familiar with Hope. But as a part of a new church launch, that's one of the things I had mentioned before the program that trying to email and bring together the pastors in our area so that I can meet them. But this is one of the topics I want to talk about. What are we doing in our area, and how can we, as a new church, be involved in our community in doing those kinds of things? It's really frustrating, as you mentioned, about the whole government shutdown at this point, when you start seeing this kind of adverse effect on a broad scale. Yeah, I'm frustrated with that. I think that, if you're politicians, you come together, and I understand both sides have the points that they have and the position that they have, but whenever you get to something like this, you have to do what politicians are supposed to do, sit down, make some sort of compromise on both sides, and make sure this doesn't happen.
Right. For me, it's a question of priorities. And what is our government's priorities? And feeding, making sure children are fed, making sure elderly are fed, making sure the disabled are fed is a priority. And I think it's a very scripture-based priority. It's the prophetic tradition.
It is,
The prophets were very clear about holding the rulers accountable for not taking care of the poor, the widow, the orphan, and the stranger in your midst. And then Jesus, building on that tradition, talked about his last judgment, kind of parable. At the end of time, you'll be separated. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. And it's a faith priority, but it should be a faith priority as well as a citizenship priority to make sure that people are being cared for. And yes, there can be lots of disagreements about other priorities, but caring for the poor, the needy in our midst is a universal priority, no matter what your perspective may be, from my faith point of view, all of our faith, but I'm just saying, but if you're, and again, many of our political leaders are claiming to be faith-based leaders too.
But are they so isolated from what happens on a daily basis to most people that there is no empathy? I mean, where is the empathy when you're talking about children being fed? Where is this administration when we're talking about hunger in the United States that's going to be overwhelming? Where are they? What are they thinking? Because it seems to me that mostly what they're thinking is about themselves.
Yeah. And it seems the question that you asked before about who is it that is in need, who is it, that's the question they ought to be asking, that they ought to be looking for, right? And I don't think they are either. So.
Yeah. One thing that is consistent across our traditions, right, is love your neighbor as yourself. And you have to know your neighbor. You have to know your neighbor's needs. And only once you do that can you actually show them love. And it's a really sort of defeating feeling to know that the administration or just government in general is fine with having sort of ego matches while the margins of society are suffering, right? And so that's kind of where we have to step in and show what it means to love our neighbors as ourselves, right? And act as a bridge, because I do think you're right. I think especially in just higher levels of government, right? It's such an isolated world and they don't always see the needs of the community, but we as faith leaders do. And so it's our responsibility to sort of push that awareness and say, hey, we need to be doing more so that we can care for our children.
Well, and there's a double whammy too, because if you're talking about primarily black and brown people who are facing a lot of this crisis, and that's not all, I mean, you know, but then you've got ICE that is prone to come to those centers, those distribution centers. We were talking in our church about the Christmas tree, you know, thing, and what to do if ICE is at our church while they're distributing the Christmas tree goods to the people. So I think we've got multiple things going on here that are targeting these people in our world unjustly.
And that goes back to priority too, right? Because ICE has to be funded. So if that can be funded and it can be continuing to grow, why can't we spend at least a little bit of money to take care of the most vulnerable in our society? It's insane.
Yeah, there are layers and layers of politics to this. I mean, if there's anything positive that's come out of this, it's put a lot of attention on SNAP. Because, you know, like in government speak, you know, SNAP got cut. And if it was called Feeding the Hungry got cut, you know, rather than these government acronyms that would make a difference. And those...
good point.
The reason there's a government shutdown is fighting against, you know, a draconian series of cuts to the most needy in our community, whether it's through healthcare and the ACA, or you know, SNAP itself was deeply cut, you know, in a variety of ways, both in who's eligible and the state's responsibility for it, you know, in this most recent bill, and trying to claw that back, you know, is at the foundational point of why there is a government shutdown. And we're at the point now where it is ego matches. Well, we'll have an individual vote on getting some of those, you know, supports for the poorest in our community after we open the government. Okay. I mean, there's even a recognition, you know, that tax cuts for the rich and cuts for the most needy, you know, in a bill have like created this kind of a divide.
Right.
And there's layers and layers beneath that too, I know.
Yeah. And on the other side of that is, no, we need to have all of that now, or we're not going to vote to open the government. We're going to let it shut down, and we're going to let this run out. And it's on both sides.
It's rolling, yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and you get part of that too. You're talking about how oftentimes so many leaders at the federal level are in their own little isolated experience and world, but that's not true at the local leadership level. And, you know, efforts are being made attempting as low as the community level, you know, with the local congregations, community ministries, and city level government as well. But local government leaders are sometimes invited to the next up table, and to make sure that their voice is being very loud and very clear. It may take 2 or 3 levels to get there, but to make sure that, and that's where our level is, to make sure our local leaders are hearing this. And that's something we can do, even in smaller cities. You know, how can we make sure that our voice is being heard at that level at the least, and encouraging them to give the same kind of witness that we're trying to give to our local leaders to then take the next level, whether it's county level, state level, national level. And it is something we can do.
And I think there's, we miss very often on the human level,
yes,
the layers of interactions within our community that go, you know, just ripple far beyond this. I mean, the amount of money that's given to help feed the hungry in this country is money that's spent in grocery stores, you know, and small businesses all over the community. Farmers are producing this food that's not being distributed. I mean, it affects the community as a whole because we are a community as a whole. We're not. It's bad for the poor people. I'm not a poor person, so I don't have to feel bad about it. You know, there's a lack of empathy there, but there's also a lack of recognition of what community means and how interconnected our lives are and should be. You know, so that when something this painful happens to any sector of our community, it has ripples that go way beyond that.
You know, there was war on drugs. Remember the war on drugs? Wasn't there a war on poverty?
There was.
So it seems like this is the war on poverty, but it's in the opposite direction.
Oh, yeah. A new sense of that word. That's not what LBJ meant. That's not what Kennedy meant.
But there is.
But there is.
That
you're right.
seems
It's a
to be
war on
what's
poverty.
going on. It's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for a great conversation. We'll be following it. We're into week 5 now. We have about 90 seconds left in the show. Probably not enough time to move on to 6-7. Anybody heard of 6-7?
Yes, you sent me that article.
Right.
Well, dictionary.com says it's the word of the year. So I was supposed to get to that at about 6 or 7 minutes left in the show.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
So is this with
look it
your
up if you
kids?
haven't. But yeah,
6-7.
we had a trunk or treat.
We're trying to bring in the younger demographic.
Yes,
here,
we had
so.
a trunk or treat at our church, getting ready last Friday evening, and people were wearing 6-7 T-shirts.
Yeah.
I saw a sweatshirt. 6-7. That's it.
Yeah.
It means literally nothing.
Yeah. I did a
6-7.
If he caught me last year, I was 67. I know it's not 67. It's 6-7.
6-7.
Yes,
Yeah.
I guess our prayer of 6-7 is the word of the year, that wisdom still gets the last word. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks to our panel this week, Father Bill Hammer, St. Margaret Mary and St. William Catholic Churches, Reverend Sally McClain, Christian Church Disciples of Christ, Dr. Todd Stepp, Pastor Ancient Paths Church of the Nazarene, Rabbi Matt Derrenbacher, the Temple, and Rabbi Joe Rooks-Rapport with the Temple. Thanks for watching Moral Side of the News this week. Check us again next week for an all-new Moral Side of the News.